The Egyptian revolution cycle has moved on and turned on itself. Morsi is out, forced from power by a popular coup as the people and the army celebrate unity. Political Islam's Egyptian presidency lies in ruins, drowned by the voices on Tahrir. Have the Arab Spring's waves broken on Egypt? What will be exposed if they roll back across the Arab world? Were the Arab Spring's demands coerced? What chances do multi-faith societies have under political Islam? We speak to a woman of Arabia, a princess of the East.
Our guest today is Her Royal Highness Saudi Princess Basma bint Saud, activist, writer and a businesswoman, and she joins us live from London. Your Royal Highness, it's great to have you on our show today.
Thank you, Sophie. It's nice to be on your show and on the Russian TV for the first time.
So we start from the latest news. We're witnessing a coup in Egypt where military have taken power, but half of the population, and that's millions, are celebrating. Is this really a military coup or the victory of the people?
No, I think it's actually both, and the victory of the people is the victory of the army itself, because maybe it's very foreign to other people to know that the army in Egypt has for so long protected the people, and it has been sworn on protecting the people rather than the government. So it's not actually something unusual for the army to abide by the people's law. And since Morsi has been in power by a democratic election, the army has fought very hard to be independent, and Mr. Morsi has fought very hard to have the army under his power. So I think it's just a very normal reaction from the army to be where he is, and definitely celebrating that the army certified his identity and kept away from the political game.
Mm-hmm. And what about the Muslim Brotherhood? I mean, it's a very well-organized political machine, well-entrenched in the region with millions of supporters. How do you think they will react to the coup and the overthrowing of their man?
Well, actually, Sophie, I have to remind you, and I have to remind everybody, that the Muslim Brotherhood, until 10 years ago, was considered a terrorist party. And it hasn't been recognized by the Islamic community in Egypt or in the Arab world, except recently. So we're not actually as if we're talking about a very great party that has been in power for such a long time. It's been considered as a terrorist party for a long time, since Abdel Nasser. So what I'm saying is that the Muslim Brotherhood shouldn't be very surprised about their short power, being in power, because they are not supported by the Egyptians themselves since a long time. It's not a short noticed alarm to the Egyptian people. It is to the world, because the world doesn't know the Egyptian culture, doesn't know the Egyptian history, doesn't know the Muslim Brotherhood's history. So rather than really celebrating the Muslim Brotherhood failure, I don't think by any means that the Islamic Brotherhood is a political movement. It is rather a religious movement politicized by other powers in the world.
Okay, so but it's not just Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. Political Islam in general, we see taking up the vacuum, filling in the vacuum of the overthrown dictators of the Arab Spring states. Why is that?
Tyrants could never be tyrants if they're not backed by big powers. Systems cannot survive on its own in this globalized world. And the fight over the Middle East and its gas and petrol has been going on for the last, let's say, 2 centuries. We're just seeing the results of who wants more right now, rather than actually any other meaning which is superior and divine, which everybody has been singing in the last 2 to 3 years on the Arab Spring. It has nothing to do with God. It has nothing to do with equality. It has nothing to do with humanity. It has to do who has more power on the ground. You take a tyrant, you put another. Nothing changes. If we don't change the systems themselves, we can never actually change whatever is happening in the Middle East. Whether now, in 10 years or in 20 years, the people will still be rising like in Iraq. Iraq Saddam was brought down in the name of democracy. And now, 10 years after the fall of Saddam, what do we see in Iraq? Destruction, wars, bombs, bloodshed, undemocracy, fighting over your day-to-day bread. People are insecure, girls being raped. And this was never happened in the time of Saddam. I'm not saying that Saddam was a good one, but I say, what is the alternative? We are making wars and revolutions, and we're not thinking about the consequences. What is the solution? What can we put instead of Morsi and Mubarak and all these tyrants? Because they're all the same. For me, as a human being, they're all the same. They're all exercising the same power. What I'm saying is, if we don't put a system in place, we are looking for a long-term revolutions in the Middle East that will never quiet down in the country. It will be another Afghanistan. It will be another Iraq. And the next one is Syria. So we're just creating terrorism as we go along down the way in the name of democracy.
So you think this coup that just took place in Egypt could actually spill over in the region?
I think it's one-off, and I think it's not going to be the end in Egypt, and it's going to spill over the whole region, and it's not only the whole region, and it's the whole globe that is undergoing a shift. And economy, Europe, Spain, Greece, the States, and South America, North America, Brazil. Look at the globe. Look what's happening. You have to connect things together. You cannot just talk about Egypt without talking about Syria, without talking about Brazil, without talking about Europe. The economy everywhere is driving the revolutions, and this is what nobody have seen. We are naming actually revolutions by religious, Sunni, Shia, but basically it's economic. It's unemployment. It's not giving the proper human rights, the social human rights, security, social security, environmental security, child security, government security, border security. This is all our issues which are very important to day-to-day person, and we're not actually really addressing these issues. We're addressing issues and looking at a very secular way, which is the political way, which is naming religion is the cause of reform or a revolution. It is not. It is economic, and this is what we are seeing right now.
You know, Qatar and Saudi Arabia today expressed no objection to the military coup in Egypt, but they're supportive of hardliners in Syria. I mean, they're pouring huge amount of money and weaponry into a country that's ripped apart by a savage war. Why such dramatic difference in dealing with those states?
Well, I would like to ask that question myself. You know, there is so many contradictions, even the states. I mean, you know, when we look at President Obama's remarks about bringing down of Morsi and saying it's undemocratic, well, you can't say, you know, you can't say anything except it contradicts every single fiber in any human being down in the Middle East. Who should be saying what's democratic and what's not? If I do not exercise democracy in my country, if I do not exercise the thing in my country, how can I ask it from other countries? There's a lot of contradictions on the scene, on the political scene, and everybody is confused and confusing the masses about the messages they're sending from the top P5 security club, or I call it the club.
Mm-hmm. But would you agree that the two countries, Qatar and Saudi Arabia, are actually competing in exporting of the hardline Islam to the region, and thus, you know, it all comes out to control who will control the region through hardline Islam?
Well, let me tell you something. Actually, Saudi Arabia or Qatar could not do anything on its own. There is support from different parts of the world for these things. As Russia is supporting Syria, Saudi Arabia is against. So it's like a game. It's like a football game. Everybody tends to put the ball in the other person's field or government's field. It's a game of power. And this is blankly, naming it down to the core and distilling every single agenda in the region to the core. It's not about Saudi Arabia. It's not about Qatar. It's about who has more power in the region, and whether it is by Islamic agenda or by democratic agenda or whatever agenda you can put to it. It is a fight for power.